Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's having a decent evening. And as I hear, lots of Americans are getting their shots and for the vaccine, and I think it's a great idea. Good for you guys. We're still falling a little bit behind, but a little at a time. There are a few questions that we have, and I'll try and see what we can do with those. This one is from Barbara Newport in Ottawa. How does our sense of self identity, individuality, and value, comma, factor into our growth? How do these changes, and how do these change in the growth process? Uh-huh.
Can you reread that?
I'll try and reread it. Marlene has asked me to do so. How does our sense of self identity, individuality, and value factor into our growth? And how do these change in the growth process? It's a very difficult question. It sounds pretty, on the surface, a little rudimentary, but it's a difficult one because of so many factors involved with real growing. As you know, much of our many of our concepts of growing are involved with uh, learning about things through listening to other people talk, and that includes reading and coming up with. It's like a race to come up with information that is more valuable than the information that you already have, so that you can really, to be honest, impress other people. This is not an engagement with spiritual growth. And when she is talking about self identity, the relationship that we have with almost everything is related to self identity, individuality, and a sense of self value. This is not negative. It sounded a little bit negative the way I said it, but it's not really negative. It's just the way we do things prior to an internal development that moves differently, enables us to allow ourselves to perceive slightly differently than we could before. There's an issue. We can't do anything until we attempt to do something different than what we normally do. We can't do anything new until we can do something different than what we do. Okay, I said that. So here's an idea. Why should we, for example, shift our way of engaging with the world? And what would be a purpose for that? Because most of the way we engage with the world, we've already learned, and we've already considered from our own perspectives the right way to be. And then, so we sell that image, you can call it whatever you want, but we present that image to others, and we expect them to consider it as much value as we do, in kind of a way. Even internal growth. You think about that. If you begin to have a relationship internally that is different than how you had it before, how could that be? Well, okay, try and give you an example. You have a way of looking at the world, how others should be and how you should be. There's an internal reference point, and this is covering a little bit of territory that relates to Lee's question, Lee Martin from Tennessee. He says, is allowing really an active or passive mental state? So I'm going to try and bring these two together a little bit if I can. When you begin to watch how you function without judging it, first of all, then you begin to understand that others function in a way that is relative to how they think they should be functioning. The same as you're doing. Not the same idea, not the same way of acting. If you have something to say about that, and you will, because that's the way you've been brought up, then you will tell other people, perhaps, or you will discharge an unconscious reflex that relates to not understanding how somebody could be this way or that way or another way. We all have done this in our lives. But we're not paying attention inside to how we function as well as we believe we are. As well as we believe we are. Here's why. There is a consistent engagement that we have as individuals with energy moving into us and through us, and we are unconsciously and consciously responding to it. We are also responding to our own responses. It's amazing. So, in Barb's case, what if we begin to recognize how we are actually acting out physically, emotionally, and mentally? Well, kind of a mental orientation. As you probably have experienced by now, your emotional reaction is tied into a kind of thinking process where you believe you are thinking things out and expressing yourself after that, whereas often that is only reacting. It's okay. It's what we practice doing. So it's not a negative thing. It's just not really a kind of thinking in the mind plane. It's a kind of thinking in the emotional planes. So if we begin to notice that we do these things and we're conscious of the fact that we're doing them and we're watching them inside us, then watching us express ourselves externally, then if that's possible, then there's a third element. The third element is the observing element of what is going on inside and watching you react or express externally. Then there's a next step. Is it justifiable, what I do? And to you, it will be justifiable until the observing aspect of you, which is kind of a mental thing, notes that it's not quite in agreement with how you function. At that particular moment, and succeeding moments past that, you will be watching closer to what's going on in the inside and how you're expressing it on the outside. I said watching closer. It doesn't mean you're going to stop looking or start looking closer. Either one. But what it does mean is you will become susceptible to perceiving energy moving through you, around you, or from you, depending on how you engage with the image that you've structurally constructed, identity or image, or your version of how things are based on how you see yourself, your individuality quotients, and how you value these things. We are constructed to value what we believe has to be true. And we think in truth, in terms of truth, as this idea is better than that one, or this is the only idea that is of value. Depending on how you look at things, if you consider that only one idea is the only way to see things, then you are not going to be able to perceive well internally. There are no options, and you're not interested in shifting any observation that you watch yourself come up with. You are only interested in maintaining the observation because it gives you a sense of presence, a sense of idealized individuality, so-called, in terms of a value factor, more important than somebody else. Now, this is in relationship to looking at personalities. And by now, I would say anyone over 25 or 30, usually 30 is around the age, often, not always, where you begin to take a look and understand that other people have their own reasoning process, and there may be 100,000 other people that you might listen to either on TV or on anywhere at all. And your neighbors, I don't care where it is, they will come up with ideas relative to how they have the need to maintain a certain presence or set value on how they function, or how they want you to perceive them as functioning. This is normal in our world. But what is not normal in our world is if you're able to consider an act or reflex that's internal as something that has been going on for a long time, and you haven't actually observed it. And if you have, if it meets the criteria of the image that you set up for yourself, then you will keep that because it's a good selling factor when you're engaging with other people. You cannot see energy inside of you operating through you as just energy. Then you've personalized a versioning of existence that is momentary and attempt to maintain it for a long period of time. Therefore, you're not open to seeing anything beyond that at that time. It's not a restriction only, but it is a place of reference that idealizes the identity process. What I've been trying to help you understand is that there are tremendous amounts of energy transmitted helter-skelter everywhere. Walking down the street, going shopping if you could, and some of you will. Everyone that you are around is transmitting energy. Everyone. Reflexively, without perception of that occurring, you believe that any emotional reflex that comes up is yours. You believe that any thought that enters into this little basket on our shoulders is yours. You also believe that an engagement with anything that touches your body, uh, it's your body, so therefore it must belong to you. This is not real, yet it is. That difficulty is uh, based on the ability or inability to recognize and be aware of energy in you that is there and may be there for a few seconds. If you grab onto it and then you become proud of engaging that way, then you'll maintain it for as long as you're proud of it. Now, that word proud is very frustrating because it sounds like it's negative, but there's positive stuff involved with that when you're learning and you study very difficult things for a long period of time, and you try to understand them, and finally you come up with something that makes some sense to you. You should be okay with that. You say, "Wow, that's great! I'm glad I was able to do that." So, but not so much only of that should you be happy with, but the very fact that you recognize that if you keep at something, you will begin to understand something beyond what you could understand before. This is a major key in our relationship with learning and understanding. It is ageless. Any age is a part of that kind of idea. That idea is valuable, and I just don't care what your aging is. However, if you have acted in a particular way all your life, now this is your action, you will tend to want to continue that way, even if you see something that is disturbing to you in your action, because it has been of value to others. If, for example, if it was value to your parental background, it will become valuable to you. And it is very difficult for you, the reflexive actor, to allow yourself to say, you know what, I really don't want to do that anymore. And when you start saying that, then you have to go incrementally slow in slowing down the need to redraw the identity that that particular activity promotes in you. There's no negation in it. You can stay the same as you are forever. Nobody's going to negate you unless you believe they are, and some will and some won't. The dilemma with all of this is that the question is related directly to internal growth, spiritual growth. And the reason, or the reasoning behind understanding deeper and watching you, let's say, help you to be more open inside, allows you to be more deeply understanding of that which is coming into you. You start to notice, let's say, example, my solar plexus came on, or, my brow came on, or my throat came on, or I don't care what came on. Initially, if you get to the point where you can say, that's on, and I don't know why. I don't know why. This is a good sign, because you really don't know why. A little bit more difficult to deal with is, well, my solar plexus come on, and I know who that person is that made my solar plexus come on, and it was uncomfortable. What you have done there is set up a system in your lifetime to help you survive based on the blaming of others. This is just a system. It's neither good nor bad, right or wrong. It's a system. In some instances, you may even be quite appropriate. In many, not so much. Getting to know that allows you to reconsider why that system may be on. For example, if someone is hurting and you begin to notice that your gut is hurting, I'm using that solar plexus thing. And then, as someone asked me today, what can I do if my solar plexus is hurting a bit? What is the possibility? What can I do? Well, I remember talking this a little bit about that at the last seminar, where you can bring your mind behind you, put your hands up there, imaginary hands, and point them in the direction as if you were pointing down towards your shoulders and down towards your chest and a little bit at the back as well. And you're asking for help in the healing and the transmutation of the energy that's there in your solar plexus or in the way you're looking at you. Ask that it be transmuted and healed and returned to wherever it's coming from. But in a gentle, balanced, and appropriate a manner as possible for them as they can handle it, or as possible for them in their growing process. So you're asking for help for that other person. You're not trying to only annihilate them because they did something. The person you're blaming may not be the problem. You may have reacted to something internally, personally, yourself, based on some reason you don't know. Therefore, you made up a reason to make you feel comforted. That's a value factor. And internally, so that it makes you feel as if you're on top of the world or semi on top of the world, because you have just done something that you knew was right, and it may not be right, of any consequence whatsoever. The reason why I said that is this. Because as there's an increased flow in you, it will come in relative to your favorite centers that you use all the time to survive in the world and to engage with the world in a caring manner. Every center you have has a caring manner to it, attributed to it, every one. And it's not only the heart center that allows you to care or love. All centers are involved with loving. And then you're trying to understand what's going on in you so that you can begin to understand what's coming into you through each and every individual who might be similar to you or not even similar to you, different from you. There was one, I think it was Michelle, which I don't think we'll get to that question, Laramie from Quebec, who said that he sometimes feels like he's empty inside and he doesn't know who he is. In fact, many of the sages in the Far East for centuries have said, if you can perceive that empty in you, that space in you where you're not looking to see you at all, you're looking to see what is in you, flowing through you, the things you grab onto to make them yours, then you will begin to understand a relationship that you have with an expression of the highest quality, because you will begin not to react to that, but to begin to see it as a place where you can watch within you not only others energetically, but you. You can then become honest with yourself without putting you down. Honest with yourself without putting you up. I am expressing energy. That's it. That touches me here. then you can ask for help for you there. Meaning you can transmit or have an aspect of you, your beingness, transmit energy to a place that might be helpful to you. Gentling, 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 calming, quietening down so you can perceive better. And it's okay. Then you have to reassure this image that you have of yourself that everything's okay. And just because you don't have the same sense of position and place in that place, it makes you feel vulnerable. And that vulnerability, if you can make friends with it, you can say stuff like, okay, I'm feeling a sense of vulnerability. Okay, meaning I'm not presenting the way I think I have to be valuable. I am just looking inside to see if I'm all right. If the energy is still there, because you, by that time, will begin to notice energy flowing in and through you 24/7. If you do it for 10 seconds and 10 minutes, it's as good as beginning, and it's wonderful. Because no matter how many people say they have this energy thing that they know, and this is good energy and all the rest, it is a reckoning, an emotional reckoning about the area and place that they're in relative to what they believe intellectually things should be like. And there is an identity elevation in it. The individuality of that person is presented as superior or inferior, whatever, depending on the situation. And there is a value attached to it. And it's an internal value evaluation. We are stuck with these things, everybody. Myself included, everybody I've ever met, and I've met a pile of people in relationship to spiritual growth, and some really wondrously able. And we are all in these planes engaged with these things. And there are some who think they are not. And there are some who know they are, and they are really able. But they know they are because they are engaged with these planes for the purpose of helping these planes. And they want to be as aware of these planes where they are, their own identity, their own individuality, their own methodology related to value of self and others. They want to for sure know without any doubt that they are clearly aware of these things for the purpose of being able to help in those levels and layers of consciousness that in us as an average person are hidden from us. We are, so I'm just bending to pick up my glasses, sorry about that. We are without any doubt involved on a day-to-day basis with many of the natural tendencies that we have all had. And some of them are hidden from others because it doesn't make them look good. And others don't hide anything, and it still doesn't make them look good. So somewhere along the way, there is a middle ground in here. And attempting to perceive doesn't take away you as an individual, but it doesn't elevate you as an individual either. It broadens out the relationship that you have with life, with existence. And in that way of engaging, you begin to know that there is really no competition in this. We help each other. However, that isn't the way it plays out in many instances. It's like there's a fever to be better with somebody else. And in fact, if you walk out into the world with that kind of semi-perception, there's only one person you'll have to learn how to deal with, and that's you. If you're really, this is a dilemma, if you are really sincere about growing internally, that energy internal, that loving inside will help you to be helpful to yourself. And that you will fight with the identity that you have. You will fight it because you want to maintain the position and place that you already believe you need to maintain for the purpose of being valuable. And you are valuable without that. Truly valuable without that. As much valuable as any individual could ever be. I don't care who they are. And the purpose related to these areas of engagement is, how can you allow yourself to have energy flow through you that is not directed by you for the purpose of helping others where you don't know they need the help? All the intermediate stages in our stages here are like this. Because of the identity you cherish, you know where others need help. Because of the individuality, or at least the intense relationship that you have with how you need to be the way you are, it makes you feel better to think you know where they need help. It's a value added. And that's very difficult for us all. We all have these tendencies, to be honest. So learning how to move into a place where watching you, little by little, internally, to help you, that's you and you, is difficult because the belief is that we don't need the help. We just need more information. More information you have, the less help you need, because you know something, but you don't do something. And this is difficult for us all. So then beginning to know that you are a human being is an extremely important thing. You live on these planes and this is where you are. But being okay with that is vital. But it doesn't mean that we will always do that. It does mean, though, it would be interesting to allow yourself to begin that level of understanding inside of you. You do not have to tell anybody else. In the marketing world, you have to tell everybody so that they'll know you're great. In the real world, the movement is towards no one knowing, unless you're teaching, and that can be frustrating. Because how in heaven's name are you going to help anybody unless you're doing something similar to what you're saying within yourself? And some of you I know who are attempting to teach out there are attempting to do that. The attempt is more important than the expression of, you know, how it all is and how it works, because the attempt continues, and it is a wondrous continuance. It's one of the most vital things that you can do if you were on a small island and you were all by yourself. You would have to try and survive, and you need everything that you have to survive. But if you also want to grow on that island, there was nobody else to blame in relationship to the island that you've constructed in terms of personal growth. And there's no one there to impress. No one there needs to listen so that you can be comfortable and comforted. All our systems that we have are comforting systems, and we need them until we can allow ourselves to use them but not lean on them. From time to time, everybody needs what they have learned between 0 and whatever age you are. Knowing that that's true, then when they show up, you don't have to only do those that makes you, because they will make you feel good or valued somehow. This is very difficult to do. But that's in the realm of internal growing, beyond the presentation of how important you are because you are doing something. In our world, there's much to be done. And in our world, I can only hope that we can get as much help as we need, because we need the help in growing. Otherwise, the biggest consistency that we have in terms of spiritual growth is battling one another for who's right and who's wrong. I think it's of great value to allow yourself to do some growing inside. You're very fortunate. Many of you are meditating almost daily. Many of you are asking very difficult questions internally. And many of you recognize that you don't get everything perfect. And you're not always right about things. And that's a good thing, because there are so many options about many things. Deepening a relationship with perception is not an easy thing. And it's not seeing a bunch of colors and therefore you're right. Although I have to admit that I've been through that. and when that disappeared on me, I was, I won't say I was heartbroken, but it was close. Because you get to be known for being able to see certain things. And they're called very important things by our rules of spiritual growth. And then when they disappear, because they're less relevant at the time, then you have to readjust. It's a bit like personality stuff. If you've been using personality characteristics that you really believe are vital and important to you so that you can actually exist in the right way, and suddenly you're not interested in doing that, you're going to have one heck of an interesting time trying to talk yourself out of using the same characteristics that you've been using for 30 or 40 years plus. It's an interesting merry-go-round when you're dealing with the personality characteristics. I hope that Barbara was okay. And with Lee's question, is allowing an active or a passive mental state? It's a both. And it's really, when you're talking about that, if you could take a look at it from one point of view, you could look at it from, we have two aspects that are fairly clearly, we can fairly clearly talk about. One of those aspects is what we say. That's an external aspect. And the other is what we think of inside. Internal reactions, external expression. Some have it the other way. External reaction, internal kind of expression. If you're extroverted, fairly clearly you'll find this out very easily. And if you're lucky to be in the middle, where you're partly extroverted and partly introverted, in other words, you don't talk very much. In the introversion level, if you're introverted, you're going to have to practice being a little extroverted. That's what I had to do and still have trouble with, to be honest. But in teaching, if I don't speak and I'm not saying something, then that other internal side has to come out to the external side, which doesn't have anything to do with the personality's orientation. So there's three orientations I just said. Talked about extroverted, introverted, plus an additional element that relates to another state. And also the middle ground, that sometimes you're introverted, sometimes you're extroverted. And a whole lot of people reserve internally a whole lot of thoughts about what's going on, and they try not to let that show on the outside of themselves. And the reverse might be true as well. But you can be kind of observed as being passive, and you're not passive at all. And you could be observed as really very expressive, and you seem to have quite an ability to engage well mentally, and it's not mental at all. It could be emotional. It could be literally in a gentle kind of way, more active. But at the same time, an individual is always trying to make sense of whoever they're with all the time. And there's a measure that goes on. Here's the measure, and this is a little bit of Michelle Laramie's question, is that other people affect you when you're with them. There's an adjustment. You're trained to align a little bit with them unless you don't allow yourself to align with anyone. And then that relates to the image that you have, this identity thing that is solid. And if you ever get rid of it, you will surely not be worthwhile. This is a dilemma. And I think when you're dealing with the concept of being passive or active, you notice I didn't say aggressive, and he didn't say aggressive either. But there's a process of non-judgment that goes internally. For example, if you are prone to judging people, and most of us can be that way, another question that you could ask inside is, I wonder why they think that way. What causes them to think that way? What causes them not to be open to allowing themselves to come up with a different option than the one that they believe is the only thing that might be worthy of expression, because they're basically attempting to talk you into thinking their way. Well, I find that really interesting because as a teacher, you're trying to show something, and you're showing something, but you know at the same time that if everyone did what you did, they would not end up exactly the same as you are. Thank goodness for that. They would be different. They would be learning through them. And that can be active and passive. A passive outlook, for example, one would call this passive. You're pensive, watching inside all the time. And that's very active, by the way. So active you wouldn't believe it. But another person who doesn't do that might say, they don't talk very much. They're very, passive. They don't have an opinion about something. Everybody's got an opinion about something. Doesn't mean the opinions are valuable. One may be okay, another may be okay from a different angle. But if you look at something and you are active on the inside, it cannot be seen very well by those who don't look inside. Again, this external aspect, extroversion and introversion, neither one of them are wrong. Neither one of them are negative, but they are methods of engaging with life. And often are dependent, not always, often are dependent on family backgrounds. Often. I met a gentleman one time who was very pensive, and I realized this was not his first kick at the cat. And he knew that he didn't have to speak out loud too much. He was very curious about an engagement with energy that was going on inside of him. His engagement with energy was of interest to him. He didn't have to prove anything to anybody. He didn't have to say anything because he was aglow with energy and watching where other people's energy touched him so that he would understand where that other individual might be of some help and need some help, because he had a different alliance with how life should function. His verbal interaction was rare. And it doesn't mean because you don't speak, you're some holy person. This person really was. He was really able to handle gentle, subtle flow operating through him, being helpful to others. When he needed stronger flow, that could also occur. But it wasn't him doing the assessing. It was that glow of energy that was doing the assessing. Now, this is kind of a little bit hard to swallow in terms of an individual's personality, wanting to reign over all thought. We have both of those worlds in our world. We have the subtlety, the engagement with the perception of another inside another. But we also have the engagement with the external world where a person figures out how another person is relative to how they've been trained to figure them out and tries to help relative to that particular training. Or no training, jump to conclusions. Or internally, no interest in energetic orientation, just annoyed because the person is interrupting them in some form of thought. Yeah, we all have these things in many degrees. There's no negation related to this. This is what happens on these planes. So when you're looking at things from that point of view, trying not to judge is helpful. When you react and judge, you can't let yourself see inside what might be helpful or what might be going on in another. Sometimes people are in great pain and they try to be helpful to the best of their ability. Sometimes people are in great pain and are just aching so much. They do what comes natural to them to try and comfort themselves. And the need to comfort themselves is huge. Basic understanding might be helpful to them. Basic recognition of an internal compassion with the person who is watching this happen would be helpful. And the reason why it would be helpful in terms of compassion is that the individual watching would notice and perceive that pain in another. And they would understand through their own grid how difficult a time that other being was going through, and attempt to the best of their ability to pull away from the natural reflexive response that they might have based on a surface observational relationship that might occur because they're nervous or afraid, or the individual who's watching may be nervous and afraid. This is not so easy in our world, but is an aspect of internal growth. No one gets this perfectly. So it's not about getting it right versus wrong, good versus bad. It's about learning and understanding and being okay with not being able to understand sometimes, with being able to understand sometimes. In every option that we engage with, and this is very not so simple for us. But these questions are deep questions, and I appreciate them. And they run into, I think, a question that was previously answered on one of these that was by Michelle. And this question, when you're growing, these questions come up internally when you're growing. And answers don't come easily for them when you're with them. But when you are meditating, for example, and you're trying to be aware inside of you as you meditate, and you're doing the pump, for example, if you think you're going to wipe out a little bit, you attempt to do the pump, even for, if you could do it for 30 seconds, and you're still holding on, but calmly, softly, and you're about to go out again, so you do it again. And then you're getting to the stage where you're going so deep, you're not used to being deep. It only takes a second or two to go deep. You're not used to it. And then you try to do the pump and you may find you can't, and you're not there anymore. What you've done is you've passed out a bit. Then when you are coming out, no judgment, please. Nothing at all. You could say, oh my goodness, I think I might have fallen asleep. One could say that might be sleep. I think sometimes it is sleep. Sometimes it is a deeper level of meditation. that you cannot consciously hang on to yet. Then you begin to do the pump ever so slowly. Again, starting to focus on the energy rather than the business of you passing out. Forget it. No value. Just then do the pump for a little while. Yes, if the meditation's over, you need to get out and you're on your own, then hang in there for a few more minutes. It's not a time thing. It's a relationship thing. You're deepening your relationship with a deeper level within you. And just continue for a few more minutes. Hang in there. Hardly move your head at all, because that's another question by Catherine Willow. And when you're doing that, you're not trying to hurry it up. You're trying to notice that when you do that, that the energy gets stronger, and it's trying to help you to recognize a sense or position that you can remember or attempt to remember when you're drifting out. When you're drifting out and you start that pump and you start going ever so slowly. Yes, your back will not be straight. Yes, your position will be not traditional, but your meditation will be stronger. Thank you very much. We're going to meditate. For those of you who do meditate, I wish you well. And if you can, ask for peace in the world and gentleness and peace within yourself as well. And if you don't mind, ask for healing for everybody on the planet. We sure as heck need it. We're not sure what that would look like, but nonetheless, we still need it. I wish you well, everybody. Have a good evening. And now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. Please try to open your hands again and go slow. Slower you do it, stronger it gets. Have a good evening. I wish you well, everybody.